Hi, everybody. Very happy to be joined by Kelsey today. Do you want to start us off, Kelsey, with an intro to you and your book?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me tonight. My new book, The Three, has just been released, and it is set in 18th century London. It's maybe a little different from your typical crime, but it has thriller elements. It's about a gay man who makes women's undergarments. He falls in love with this aristocratic man, and we kind of follow their love in 18th century London at the same time as he meets this woman, his client, who's he's making undergarments for, and she introduces him to these dangerous ideas of revolutionary France, the Enlightenment, and human rights, and eventually his loyalties become split between these two people, his lover and his friend, and he has to make a decision. There's secrecy, there's betrayal, and yeah, it's not great for readers who want to immerse themselves in 18th century London and in maybe some different material than what they're used to.
Was it? I mean, you said this is your recent book, so you've got some other books out.
No, this is actually my debut novel. Yeah,
Debut
yeah,
novel. Okay.
yeah.
Was it? So, I'm curious as to why you've gone 18th century London for it.
Yeah, I didn't know much about the 18th century when I began writing, but I went to an exhibit at the V&A Museum in London about the history of underwear. I used to live in London, and I've gone back and forth a lot over the years. So I was at this exhibit about the history of underwear, and I was really surprised to learn that these undergarments for women and for upper class women were actually made by men in the past, and it was a highly skilled thing, a highly skilled trade. And so I just began wondering, like, what would that relationship be like between these two people, this upper class woman and this working class staymaker? And, what if he had a secret that he's gay? What if it's her husband that he's been in love with this whole time? So it was really that inspiration for the story that kind of, began this whole journey into the 18th century. And I didn't know much about it before, but I came to realize through researching the novel that it really is so relevant to us today. I mean, a lot of our ideas about individual liberty, about identity, about, capitalism, our whole economic system, all of that stems from the 18th century. And of course, the early roots of the Industrial Revolution that we still see the roots of today as well. So, or the results of today. So, yeah. And it was very fun to think about the role of fashion in the 18th century and the role that fashion plays today. And there was just a lot of food for thought, a lot to explore.
Cool. Yeah, I remembered reading in the author notes about the V&A exhibit.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a random thing to inspire you, isn't it? Like
Exactly. The dangers of these museum exhibits, yeah, people walk in and they walk out with an idea for a novel. It was kind of the three characters too. Once I came up with that premise of the staymaker and this man he's in love with and the illicit, that of course was illegal and punishable by death in the 18th century. So it was very dangerous. And then this woman coming in with these dangerous revolutionary ideas, and that tension between the three of them, because of course she doesn't know that her husband is gay and has this lover, and that her best friend is her husband's lover. So what I wanted to really explore, the role that those secrets play and amongst these characters, and what the eventual betrayal, when those secrets, of course, inevitably come to light, how everyone deals with the fallout of that betrayal.
Yeah. I like that you've gone for LGBT characters, because I think that's the thing that's good to explore in kind of historical fiction as well.
Definitely. Yeah, I think a lot of, especially 18th century historical fiction, tends to be very, kind of Bridgerton, which is great. Of course, there's a time and place for that, but it's a lot of high society. It's a lot of balls. And I mean, I have a little bit of that in the novel, but I really wanted to look at these other people, these other characters on the margins of society, working class people as well. And just think about what the reality would have been like. And of course, yeah, I mean, again, for LGBT and gay men in particular, it was really frowned. I mean, not frowned upon. People hated gay men, and they were not afraid to just if they saw somebody, to beat them up or kill them or punish, again, legally it was punishable by death. And unfortunately, that still is the case for a lot of countries today. So, luckily in a lot of Europe, we have, more human rights now, but it still is a reality for a lot of people. So it's always worth highlighting those voices, I think.
Is it daunting as a debut author setting out? Because it must be daunting to be writing your first book anyway, and then to sort of delve into having to honor like the LGBT voices and all of that research that you must have had to do to get everything authentic.
Mm.
Story, you've got details how they made the corsets, you've got all of the kind of language they would have used, slang and stuff in 18th century London. You've got like what they would have been eating and doing.
Yeah,
that must be so much more, make it even more of a task to sort of start facing to write your own like first novel.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think you have to break it down into bite-sized pieces, but there were a lot of times during the course of writing it where I felt overwhelmed. But the research was a really fun part, actually. I went to the British Museum and looked at old maps, the John Roke map of 18th century London. I read about prison conditions because I have a couple scenes set in prison and a couple in Bedlam as well. So I read about, tried to just immerse myself as much as possible. And the slang, as you say, derogatory words people would have used for different types of people. Not that you want to include that, but sometimes, it brings it to life and you have despicable characters who talk that way. And so you have to. But yeah, it's definitely a lot of work. But you have to, I kind of like to compare it to doing like completing a Rubik's Cube, but with an extra dimension almost when you're writing a novel like this, because you turn one thing, you fix one storyline, and then, it has all these effects down the line that you can't see until you've made the change. And then you realize, oh no, now that changes how this character does this, or this changes that storyline, or I'm missing these important details. But like I say, you do it piece by piece. And yeah, I was working full time a lot while I was writing this novel. So it really forces you. You don't have the full day to give to it. So you just do an hour or two in the evening and a couple hours on the weekend. And, you just break it down as best you can.
So you've got elements of, like you said, them being interested in the revolution in France. They're talking about going to France at points as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
Is that,
yeah.
Were you drawn into that because you're kind of based in Paris? Were you?
No, I'm trying to think. I've been in Paris for about 2 years, so I actually had most of the book written before I moved here, because it was a long project. And then, of course, between getting it published, there was a year or two of editing and having the publisher actually express an interest and all of that fun stuff. It's a slow industry. So that was all before the French connections to the book happened, before I lived here. And I think the reason that came up was I was looking at which countries were the first in the world to decriminalize homosexuality for men. And it was post-revolutionary France, just, in that little, that kind of reign of terror period where they threw the rule book out the window, and, it was a very chaotic time. But a couple of the good things they did were, one of them was that they decriminalized homosexuality. So I kind of had that in the back of my mind that maybe he'll escape and start a better life somewhere else. And I looked at Egypt as well, because I think they, interestingly, were also an early country to decriminalize it at around that time. I'm not sure if they then recriminalized it at any point. But because of the revolutionary politics, it made more sense to go to France and to bring that component with the Lady Alina character, the kind of main female protagonist. And kind of lean into what was happening over there. Yeah.
So you got some hellos from Leslie and Donna, who are watching. Donna writes as well, and she says the more she listens to people talking about writing historical books, the more she's fascinated, but also thinks that she couldn't be bothered doing that level of research.
It's a lot of work, but I think for most historical fiction writers, the research is actually one of the things that whets your appetite and gets you excited. I'm working on my second novel now, and that was also inspired by a museum exhibit. So, I think when I've talked to other historical fiction writers, a lot of them have to stop themselves from researching because you could kind of just dig into the details and immerse yourself in that world full time. I think a lot of us have a fascination with the past, and that's why we write about the different time periods. But it's a lot of work, and that's all right. It's not for everybody.
Yeah, I spoke to another author of historical crime earlier this week, and they were saying they love like a rabbit hole of research and like going down these things and finding out things they're passionate about. And I think it's probably about writing like that period of history that you're kind of interested in, or finding something that will interest you enough to sustain you through that research.
Yeah, exactly. Knowing about the world, like you say, it gives you energy, it sustains you. And I find, at least for myself, that there's a lot of similarities, or I'm looking for similarities. Of course, living in the 100 or 200 years ago was very different from now in a lot of ways, but in other ways, not so much. And I think it's really interesting to sort of think of myself or someone like me in a different world, with totally different surroundings, much less technology, clothing that was much heavier and, more structured. Just a total, in some ways, like the sensory world was so different. No cars, I mean, like, just so different. But at the same time, humans still loved, you still had parents and children, that affection was there. Just all of these things that make us human. We have secrets again, we betray each other. And so
It gives you an
it's
opportunity, I think, historical fiction as well, like you're saying, with those parallels, to make comments on things that are maybe still happening in the modern world. So we've talked about the fact that homosexuality is criminal there, but it still is in parts of the world, so it's kind of an interesting thing. We're exploring things in historical fiction that can still have a resonance today.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time when we think about the past, we like to compare ourselves favorably. Oh, we wouldn't do those crazy things now. We wouldn't have slavery or criminalize homosexuality or be sexist towards women. And, of course, unfortunately, that is still the case. Like we have examples of that all over the place. So I think sometimes it's a good lesson to ourselves to think a little bit deeper about how progressive we really are, or to rethink our own role in relation to the past. Yeah.
Let's talk about the characters in the book now, because they're interesting. We've got like this kind of like triangle between the three main characters, haven't we?
Yeah.
And they're all kind of interesting people. I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. I don't think I liked any of them.
Interesting.
Or, if you know what I mean. They were kind of all like, they all had their own issues, didn't they?
Yeah. I mean, to me, they're all three-dimensional human beings, with positives and certainly, their problems as well. Our point of view character is Matthew Rook, the staymaker, and he begins the novel especially really self-centered, really focused on himself. And it's, he's driven and he's passionate, but at the same time, he really just sees himself as an island in the world. And then, the novel is him going on. I mean, part of the novel is him going on this journey to kind of understanding how he fits into the larger world and how we're all connected and all that lovely stuff. Henry, his lover, is very generous and, more landed gentry and has a lot of money. And so he's very sweet and very affectionate. But also really driven and shaped by fear. A lot of his decisions and the way that he behaves are very fear-based, and he's got his own past, his relationship with his father that's very problematic. His wife, Lady Alina, who's the main female character, and is our revolutionary thinker. She's also a little bit closed off, even though her ideas are so connected to the broader world. She's a little bit, has her blinders on a little bit about her own household and about even her work to a certain extent. So she doesn't always see like the class differences between her and Matthew, who's working for her. So yeah, they all have, I hope that they're all well-rounded characters that have some positive sides, but yeah, certainly bad sides too.
There's some kind of interesting side characters as well, isn't there? So like Matthew has an apprentice who's like makes appearances every now and again in the book, and she's quite an interesting aside because she's quite a strong character.
Yeah, Martha, his apprentice. She kind of represented, or I brought her in because, again, going back to the original inspiration at the Victoria and Albert Museum, I learned that stays were made by men originally, but then in the 1780s they began to become it was women who took over the trade. So then, for your corsets and your Jane Austen bodices and stuff, you would have had women making those undergarments. So Martha, the apprentice, kind of represents that change in the industry, that women were coming in, and he's not always very kind to her, but he does keep her on and trains her, and over time you see that a friendship forms between them and a mutual respect. But she's a fun character. She's very no nonsense, calls it like it is, but is also very thoughtful, and yeah, she was a lovely character.
So you said book 2. You mentioned this earlier. We're going to go back to what you were saying. Also inspired by a museum exhibit.
Yeah. Keep me away from museums. I have to.
So, can you tell us anything about what book 2 is going to be about?
Yeah, I can give a little bit. I'm in the middle of writing it now, so it could, I'm still figuring out a lot of it, but it was inspired by the William Morris Gallery in Walthamstow in London, and it's about Jane Morris, William Morris's wife. So we know, in the UK especially, William Morris is a pretty famous character as the wallpaper making and socialism and all the literature he wrote. Like, he's a really fascinating person. But I thought, when I learned about his wife, who was born as a servant, she was a scullery maid in Oxford, and then began modeling for the pre-Raphaelite painters, and then married William Morris and had an affair. She risked losing her children and all the life that she had been, built with William Morris to have this affair with Dante Gabriel Rossetti. I thought she was really interesting, and she was very artistic in her own way. She ran the embroidery department at William Morris, at his company, for a long time. Even she taught herself French and Italian, and was a very bright woman who went through all these different transitions. And so I thought she had a very interesting life that was worth digging into, and especially that affair between her and Rossetti and his kind of maybe Gothic obsession with her a bit. So I think that's going to be a bit of a Gothic tale, actually. We'll see how it shapes up.
I was curious as to, you kind of leave, like, we try not to give spoilers, but you kind of leave like the end of the 3 fairly open.
Yeah.
So there is a potential to kind of go back and write more. So I was kind of curious if your second book was going to be more of those characters.
Yeah, I am open to that for the third, potentially, especially, well, yeah, I won't say too much, but with the ideas connecting to France and me being in Paris now, there certainly is opportunity to do some research here that would really intrigue me. And I have an idea to continue with 1 or 2 of those characters. That I think could be interesting, but I don't want to give any spoilers or, say too much, but yeah, we'll see if it's well received and everything, and there's appetite for that. I think I would certainly be interested in writing a sequel.
Yeah, because you're with Canelo, which we're a big fan of in our group.
Oh, lovely. Yes.
As a publisher, they published some of my favorite crime authors' books.
Yeah, they have a lot.
Yeah, and there's some lot of really good quality.
Definitely. I'm very, very honored to have been plucked. I don't have an agent or anything. I was literally just in their submissions pile, and my editor pulled me out and wanted to take on this book. So, but they're a great publishing house, so I'm really happy to be with them.
So, are they going to publish book 2?
They are. Yes, they are. Exactly. Yeah. And then after that, we'll see. It's pretty common with debut writers, I think, to have 2 books because it takes a lot of work to make the world aware of us as new writers. And so once a publisher has done all that work, I think they feel like, well, we should have a second book just ready to go. So hopefully for me, that will be next year, next spring for the second one.
So are you, obviously it's very exciting when your first book comes out. How did you celebrate your publication day?
Yeah. I'm very, just kind of living the dream life here in Paris. Went to a cave à vin, a wine cellar with some friends, and had some, we didn't have champagne, actually. We had Pétillant Naturel, which is the, sort of cheaper but equally delicious, bubbly. So yeah, I was very, very happy to do that. I brought a couple of my author copies of my book because it wasn't quite available in Paris yet at the independent bookshops, but it is now, but on the publication day. So my friends and I just, had a lovely time celebrating and posing. And yeah, it was very fun. It's like you say, it's for most writers, it's a dream that we've held for many years. For me, it's like my longest held dream since childhood. And it's a real honor to be able to present this book that I spent so much time on to the rest of the world and share the characters with everybody and, see what readers think of it.
So do you have, I mean, obviously you're doing the event with us. Do you have any other author events booked? Because you're going to have a bit of a challenge getting over here for, well, not a massive challenge, but you know what I mean? You've got a journey to come over for.
Yeah, I did a radio interview with TRE, Talk Radio Europe, the other day. And in March, for those based in London, Goldsboro Books is going to be carrying the 3. So I'm going up to sign some copies of that book in March. So yeah, it's a little tricky. I can't develop my relationships with booksellers in quite the same way that someone based in the country can. But at the same time, how many towns have more than one bookshop anyway? And I suppose it's, it is what it is, unfortunately. But I do go up to London a decent amount, and the rest of the UK, if anyone will have me, I'm always happy to travel a bit further.
So will you be going to some of the crime festivals and things?
That's a good question. I don't have any plans to yet, but I should chat with my publisher and see if that's a possibility. Yeah, that would be really fun because it makes such a huge difference to meet readers and to see other people. Like, you get that sense of community and to share your book. It's much less abstract, of course, when you're actually talking both at events like this virtually, but also face to face, of course, is wonderful.
I also think at places like Harrogate, Canelo get their authors together.
To
meet like the other people that are published.
Yeah, that would be really fun. Yeah. Because I've connected with a few people on social media, but a few fellow authors, but of course, haven't met anyone face to face yet. That's a good idea.
It is. I mean, it is a good idea. And like I said before, there are so many, like you're in good company.
Yeah. Thank you. I know they take their crime fiction very seriously, for sure.
They do. There's some, like I said, some fantastic authors. How much? Because it's quite an intricate cover that you've got. How much of a say did you get in that?
I didn't get much of a say. I kind of, as the author, felt like my role was to write the story, and the publishers, especially as a debut writer, my expertise is not cover design, unfortunately. I just didn't want it to be like one of those Fabio kind of like woman in a corset with her windswept hairstyle, like very romance fiction kind of cover. I wanted it to, which is fine, there's nothing wrong with that genre, of course, it's wonderful, but it's not really this book. It would have misled readers. So I really am very happy with the cover that they came up with. All this tangled thread, and kind of hints at those 3 tangled lives, and the key is meant to hint at this big mansion, Henry's mansion, that they all live in, and the one house, 3 people, a secret that dare not speak its name, is also for British audiences, of course, and a nod to Oscar Wilde. And I think it's lovely. It's simple, but I think it's eye-catching, and I'm very happy with it. So
as they sort of spend time in the house together as well, you do kind of I think this is where the complexity of the relationships and the shades of grey come in, because they are kind of all misleading each other.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and it's for all of them, the stakes are quite high. I mean, I know in crime fiction, it's often life and death, and to a certain extent, we have those stakes. But for Lady Alina, who is, seems to wield a lot of power in the household, her reality is that she doesn't, and Henry doesn't want her writing these political pamphlets that she is, or engaged in, all this revolutionary talk. So it's quite dangerous for her, and she does face some punishment in the book for well, not her crimes, but for doing that. Yeah, it's a lot of I think they're all kind of in their own ways wound up in their own worlds, and they don't think about, they're so concerned with guarding their secrets that they don't think about what will happen when those secrets eventually come to light. And because Matthew is our main character, it's his betrayal that we learn about most fully, and how he has to reckon with that. And I was really fascinated by kind of thinking that through. What happens when we break our promises to people that we love? And what if we're pulled in two directions between two different people that we love equally, but we can't love both of them actually if we want to, but loving one means betraying the other, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think I felt like the decision became easier for him towards the end, without giving away a spoiler.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's true. It's tricky to talk about, but I hope that I tried to kind of sprinkle it so that what leads to the ending, is it's not like I mean, hopefully there's an element of surprise, but it makes sense. I think it's a fitting ending for these characters. And yes, the decision Matthew makes, I mean, I imagine for most readers, you're kind of screaming as you read, thinking, what are you doing?
Yeah. You've got, I mean, Lady Alina, like you said, is our revolutionary thinker. I mean, I would read a book just with her.
Yeah. Well, if I do a sequel, she would be the principal character. I think it would be about her life. Yeah. Or her life after the events of this story. I think there's some pretty interesting fodder in there. Yeah.
Yeah, because she's so, like, she's very much kind of trying to find her way, isn't she? And like get her voice out there. Maybe
Yeah.
not in the most, like you said, she makes a lot of mistakes because she's got a very privileged, sort of sheltered life, and I don't think she realizes.
Yeah. Exactly. No, she's just like, working class things, this is very important. We have to unite everybody. Oh, by the way, servant, get me da 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 da. She's a little hypocritical for sure. But that's what Matthew brings to the table as they become closer friends, is he's, kind of like, hey, look, you act like or you say we're all equal, but you're not acting like it. So and of course, in more 18th century language, but yeah, she was a really fun character to think about and to develop, for sure. I have a lot of love in my heart for Lady Alina.
And she does have like that ability to listen. Like she cultivates a friendship with Matthew to have that link and to learn more.
Exactly. And she evolves. She's not afraid to be criticized and to change, which is, I think an important lesson of not that there's lessons in the novel, but that's one of the things I took away from writing it, is, that we have to evolve. We have to be open to changing and to staying curious about new ideas. Otherwise, we're stagnant, right? And there's no fun in that.
True. I mean, this is intriguing because like the crime isn't as evident kind of throughout, is it? You know what I mean? There's like lots of bits of things that are crimes, but it's not like an overt crime story.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
have more of a crime in the second book. Or is it on that kind of theme of it being?
I think it will be, it's a good question. Um, I think it will be more atmospheric for sure. There's a little bit of that kind of darker, moody atmosphere in the three, but I think the second one will. I'm planning on really like driving that home. Will there be a criminal element? I mean, um, it's a little bit more. It's again, the stakes are, I think, going to be kind of interpersonal, and about how our relationships, what kind of strains our relationships with one another, and if we're breaking apart or if we're not, what does that cost us? I plan on having Dante Gabriel Rossetti be a pretty obsessive, kind of dark character in my second novel. But so there will be criminal elements again, but I'm not sure. Yeah, as far as like life and death stakes, I think it'll be more metaphorical life and death than literal. We'll see though. We'll see. Again, I'm in the middle of writing it, so things could change.
I mean, I feel like you're making the challenge even harder for yourself with the second one if you're using real historical people. Because I think there's a challenge when you write historical fiction if you weave in people who really existed, because you've sort of got to get those people right.
Yeah,
You can't
definitely.
go too far out of what they would have been like or what they
Definitely.
did do. Do you know what I mean? Because you are
Mhm.
going to have people who know a lot about them and will question you if you go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think I have felt the weight of that pretty heavily, and I don't want to misconstrue anybody. I don't want to, tell any outright lies about any characters, knowingly lie. Um, and I also looked up, whether Jane Morris or William Morris had any living relatives, just to be sure, because I wouldn't want to offend somebody who's still living in particular. Which luckily they don't. They had two daughters, but their line didn't continue after that. Yeah, it is tricky. It's a challenge for sure. But and I'm not Hilary Mantel. That's the dream. But she was an expert in taking the facts and then weaving a story in between those real what we know for sure from the historical record. But luckily with Jane Morris, because so much of her life is not recorded, especially before she met William Morris or met the Pre-Raphaelite painters, and began her modeling work. There's a lot of room for imagination, and of course, based on reality, based on what were conditions for working class or servants in Oxford at that time. But I think that what I'm trying to do is kind of look at the emotions and try to bring those emotions to life a bit more too, because we have experts who have studied, especially the Pre-Raphaelite painters and William Morris in particular. Not as many on Jane Morris, although there's a couple books that have come out recently. But again, historians tend to, and I think a lot of us, when we look at the past, we can sometimes look at it a bit coldly because we have distance and we don't know what someone would have been going through in an emotional moment, especially if there's no written record. And so I have an opportunity to kind of lean into the more emotional parts of her story.
Do you read a lot of historical crime?
Historical crime, I read a
Historical
bit. Historical
fiction?
fiction more broadly, yes, definitely. Historical crime, I mean, The Confessions of Franny Langton from a few years ago now, was great. That was 18th century as well, and definitely dealt with a literal murder, so very very crime heavy. But Jesse Burton is a favorite of mine. I still need to read A.J. West. I know he had The Betrayal of Thomas True recently that came out like a year or two ago. And I need to check that out because that's, I think, a similar world of the 18th century Molly houses, and a little criminal underbelly of London in the 18th century happening.
If you like them with real people in, I would recommend both Kate Foster.
Oh yeah, of course.
Nominated for the Women's Prize. She's done real crimes and then kind of writes how they got there.
Yeah, that's super fun.
And one of your fellow Canella authors, Howard Linsky, writes Shakespeare as a detective.
Oh, great. Oh, super fun.
And those are really well researched. He was actually talking to this week.
Oh, great. That's lovely.
He loves the rabbit hole. of research. So as someone who's a fellow avid researcher, you will appreciate his books because
thank you for those recommendations.
So much historical detail.
Yeah, and as a writer, it's useful to read that stuff because sometimes, I mean, when it's a writer that you trust, where you're like, I know they're not making this up, I know that they did their research, then you can kind of, use that, and it can awaken your imagination too, as a writer and a reader, of course.
Which is one of the things I like. I think about that kind of fiction. I think it's kind of interesting to go back and explore those periods that we don't know as much about.
It can make the past come to life in a different way, right? Where you think, oh, I would have never thought about, just 18th century blah, one big chunk of, time in the past. And now, I mean, or from Shakespeare's time as well, right? 16th century, just whatever, who knows, crazy, just so long ago, who even knows? But when you have stories that bring it to life, then suddenly you're like, oh yeah, I think, okay, I know how the streets would have sounded because there were horse hooves, or there were carriage wheels creaking, or what kind of lighting were they using? Were there candles or torches hanging? And, were there even paved streets, or were there no streets? And it was just mud and muck. What did the Thames smell like? All of that fun stuff. You can really get so detailed. It's great.
Do you think you would ever be tempted to venture out into other genres?
Yes, potentially. I don't have any ideas at this point for different genres, but I used to do screenwriting. I wrote screenplays before I wrote novels, and some of those were more contemporary set, although some were also historical fiction, or historical screenplays. I definitely, I mean, I suppose if you have the right story and the right plot line and the right characters for that story, that's what's most important. And then the historical setting is fun for me, but of course a contemporary modern setting would be a lot less research, so I could save some time writing about the 21st century or the late 20th century even.
Do you, I mean, there is that, isn't there? But do you think that, like, when you're carrying on these books, so we're talking about the potential of book 3 going to Paris and things, that could help you to have more like in-person author events as well, because at least you would have things kind of set where you are.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I hope that with this one, over time, as more, as the word gets out about it and as more readers discover it, there will be some opportunity to do that with even the English language bookshops here in Paris or in the nearby towns, because there are quite a lot of expats who live here as well. But London's not that far away either, and so we'll just have to see. I mean, going to like the crime festival, crime events, or a literary festival or something like that would just be so nice, as you say, to meet fellow writers and for me to connect with readers and just be a little bit more connected to that whole scene. We'll see as time goes on, but that's definitely a hope.
So if Netflix came calling, this is one of our favorite author chat questions, or any other streaming service, we're not affiliated.
If only, right?
Of your choice, came calling to like adapt the 3.
Yeah.
Is there a character you would like to play?
Oh gosh, that's such a good question. I got asked a lot if I did the audiobook, because there is an audiobook recording, and I was like, no, it's a British man. I'm not a professional actor, and even if I was, I don't think I could sell that. I mean, if I was a proper actress and could do the accent and actually do the character, I would say probably Martha would be fun. Miss Mays is also tempting. She's a very small character who's just in a couple scenes, but she's a favorite of mine. She kind of acts as a foil to Lady Alina, but I think Martha would be a good one. Yeah, she's in more scenes, and she gets to do a lot of eye rolling and a lot of kind of no nonsense little snappy comments and stuff. That would be fun.
Would you want to write the screenplay as well of your own novel, or would you want someone else to do it?
Maybe. Emma Donoghue, I think, has adapted a couple, at least one of hers when she did Room, but I know she's written some other The Wonder. I'm not sure if she adapted that one. I would be intrigued by it for sure. I originally, when I came up with the idea, it was when I was still writing screenplays, and it's literally the first novel I ever wrote. A lot of writers, they have 3 or 4 novels that they write before the one that gets published, but those projects for me were scripts. I think that I have, some knowledge of how a screenplay works, or a teleplay for a TV series. I would certainly be interested in trying it, but of course there are more practiced experts out there that I would, love to get their feedback too.
So I'm going to carry on asking you some of our favorite books.
Yeah, please, it's fun.
New, so we can ask you like ones that we've like retired. I always like it when we get some new, because it's like, oh, we'll ask these questions again. Would you like to make a graphic novel version of one of your books?
Oh, that would be very fun. I think, yeah, the 18th century has, in the novel, I made sure to include a lot of like classic set pieces. You've got like these old chocolate houses, the debating societies where people would gather and talk about new ideas. There's a ball in Ranelagh Gardens. The Molly houses, of course, these kind of riotous pubs where gay men would gather. I think that there's a lot of visual elements in the dressmaking, of course, and the stay making. So I think that, yeah, I think it would be a very visually interesting novel. That could be quite fun for sure. But yeah, definitely, again, hire the experts. Yeah, not an illustrator, sadly.
Like a little bit of a drag show, isn't there? In the
yeah, yes, yeah, there is a little bit of cross-dressing. Yeah, super fun, definitely. Yeah, and even the more darker scenes set in prison and in Bedlam. There's even just the big ships coming and going to and from London, bringing all the trade. There's just a lot of visual richness, I think, that would suit a graphic novel.
Yeah. I mean, I think as well, like the scenes in the Molly house bring a different sort of atmosphere to the story. They sort of bring a little bit of joy at times when you need it.
A little levity. Yeah. Until not, I mean, that's how unfortunately it was for gay people, even up to the 80s and 90s in America, where the threat of a raid is kind of ever hanging. But yeah.
Yeah. When you were thinking of those scenes, were they quite I'm trying to think about like the most challenging parts of the novel to write. Were they sort of the fun bits to write, those scenes, or?
They were fun, but they required a lot of research. Yeah, and luckily there's an amazing British American researcher called Richter Norton, who has a whole website that really he looks at the newspaper clippings and the Old Bailey criminal court proceedings of the time, and really pieces them all together to make kind of to tell the history of that time, particularly for gay men. And he looked at the Molly houses, and his research was really useful as I thought about what those scenes could look like. Also, I kind of channeled Fezziwig's dance in A Christmas Carol, even though it's totally different and a different time period, but just the warmth and the joy in that atmosphere, I tried to kind of get some of that across too. I'm not sure what the hardest scenes to write were. It's been a while now. Probably the pivotal, emotional scenes where I knew there was a lot of pressure to make sure that the emotional beats were landing the way I wanted them to. So when characters are confronting each other after sometimes after betrayals, but other times just in a fight, those were challenging. It took a few days to really work out the knots of those.
Another one of our favorite book group questions is, have you ever acted out a scene as you were writing it?
As I was writing it, I've acted out scenes in preparation to write them. I went on a walk. I did the Box Hill hike around in southern England, and I imagined that Matthew, the main character, was walking next to me, and what he would observe, and like what conversation we would have. If I told him about my cell phone, what would he think of that? How were his shoes for the walk? Did they suit the walk? And that was really fun to kind of bring him to life and carry him with like around, next to me as I was doing this walk myself. I did a little bit of, like acting out a little of the dressmaking scenes, or the fittings, where Matthew is fitting Lady Alina as her dressmaker. I did a little bit of that and practiced kind of what that would be like, how you'd hold your arms out to have someone measuring your waist, and if they were wrapping stays around you and lacing them in the back, I kind of tried to visualize that, and it helped to stand up and kind of move around a little bit to practice that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Were you ever dressing up and things?
I wish. There's a very rich, wonderful sub-community, deep in the internet, of people who do make their own 18th century garments. And I discovered them while I was doing the research for this book. And they go to these balls held in beautiful French and British estates and dress up in their homemade costumes. It looks so luxurious and incredible, but it's not something that I have done. And the amount of work and expertise it takes to make one of those gowns is it's months of work with years of expertise and training behind those months to get it right. So maybe one day it would be fun, but I think I'd have to rent a costume or something. I don't think I could make it myself.
Yeah, it'd be cool to turn up to like some of your author events in the outfit. So
yeah, I did think about that. Could I put like an 18th century wig on for the book launch or whatever? But or even just take 5 cans of hairspray to my hair, just do it all up, but it didn't happen.
There is, I've seen authors who've written like kind of period stuff and then turned up in the outfit.
It's super fun. It's kind of a nice way to connect everything, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we hit on Bridgerton a bit earlier, but I think it's like that's kind of opening the way for us to play with more like interesting characters and stuff in historical fiction.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And it's opened up the 18th century to more people who may have not thought that they would be interested in reading about it, or watching a program about it. Yeah, it's definitely awakened the imagination for sure. It's a very creative series. I haven't seen the latest season, but I know that they play a little bit more with what was real and what it can be imagined. I actually heard someone refer to it as science fiction, because it's more of an alternate reality, an alternate universe than historical fiction.
Yeah, I mean they're not very historically accurate.
Mm-hmm. No, but it's a fun set piece, so it's a fun background to kind of
you don't
set everything against
historical accuracy, do you? You watch
it. No, that's not why people watch it.
No, you'd pick something else if you wanted a bit of historical accuracy.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
But they are pretty good. What have you read recently and really enjoyed?
I read Frozen River by Ariel Lawton. I forget her. Lawhon, I think she's. That's set in pre-revolutionary America, and it's about a midwife, and has a criminal element to it as well, actually. I read, what have I just read? All Fours by Miranda July. Very different, but more literary fiction, but I really enjoyed that as well. I'm trying to think now. I'm looking over at my bookshelf to try to remind myself, what have I read? I'm trying to read in French now too, because I'm learning the language, and that's a little more challenging. Doppelganger by Naomi Klein. I recently read that for the first time. A Place of Greater Safety by Hilary Mantel. These are older books, but both really interesting in very different ways.
Yeah, it's good to sort of venture out, isn't it, and try different things.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like a lot of different types of fiction.
I saw your very impressive stack of books behind you there.
Oh, these aren't like my TBR pile. These are like ones that have been read.
Wow. It's yeah, still very impressive.
It's mostly comics and graphic novels and things as well.
Yeah, no, that's great.
The giant TBR pile is over here.
Well, I'm honored you made it through the 3 with so much to read and so much that you have read. Yeah, it's wonderful.
It's genuinely one of the joys of doing these things is that you read. We read for every author chat that we do. We try and read a book by the author, and I find it really good because it challenges the things that you would read. I mean, we're okay because I love historical fiction, so 3 is well in my remit of things. But I read like we're a crime book group, so I read like all the types of crime, and sometimes I read things that wouldn't be something I would buy. But then I also discover like new authors that I really like who write something that I would never have tried.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many rich, wonderful stories out there. And sometimes, yeah, it's a different genre than what you're used to, but you connect through a really interesting character or the themes of the story, really are intriguing. Like there's so many different touch points that we all have, right?
Yeah, and I think it's great. And people, that's the joy of these kind of things. You get to meet all sorts of interesting authors, but you also get to read all sorts of new kinds of books.
Definitely.
A privilege.
No, that's lovely. Yeah, and it's wonderful that this community exists for people to connect and chat about the books that you do read and share recommendations and do these kind of events so you get to hear from authors as well. It's all wonderful.
It's a good group.
Yeah.
She says.
No, I do think it's important. It's so easy to be on our screens and be at home watching Bridgerton or whatever, which again is of course fine. But I think one of the joys of reading is that it's a for me at least, it's a more active activity. I'm more conscientious, more aware. And then you do really want to like share it with other people. You want to take your friend and say, have you read this book? Or, you want to talk about it with people. Or if you get the chance to speak to the author, yeah, that's always wonderful too. So I think there's room for these communities to exist, but it takes work to put them on, of course. So, I commend you guys for actually putting in the work to do that.
I think because we're a group run by like readers and fans of books. And I think, like as you said, there's a joy in that kind of book community of like you've read something, you want to talk to other people about it, you want to swap books and share them with people.
Yeah,
you want to have this network of things and meet the author. And we've got this world of social media that lets us do that much easier than we used to do in like Matthew's time.
That's true. Yeah,
Matthew's
time.
Would love this time because she could like talk to her favorite revolutionary thinkers and
seriously
things so much easier.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, they had those corresponding societies, debating societies, but yeah, I mean, first you got to get educated and learn how to read, which was not a given for half the population at that time. So that's a challenge. No, we're very lucky now to have all these opportunities between the internet and books themselves. But it's you get in your head, right? It's a much more personal, like reading a book. You just I think that's why we want to share them more than TV shows or movies. I mean, everyone thinks differently, I suppose, but the time you spend with a book is longer, and it's like you shape the characters the way you imagine them and the way that you see the story unfolding in your own mind's eye. So there's a particular joy of talking about that experience with someone else versus kind of, oh, did you see that movie? It's a little different.
We are coming up towards the end of our time. So would you like to give people a reminder if they've been watching and they've been enjoying it, what they're going to go away and buy?
Yes, thank you. It's been such a joy to be here and to chat with you guys. And yeah, if anyone's intrigued by the 3, it's in every good bookstore. And online. There's ebooks and audiobooks too. So please go ahead and order the 3 by me, Kelsey O'Brien.
Yep. Well done. Do you want to give people a recap of the story plot so that they know what they're...
Yeah, sure. So it's set in the 18th century in London. Shall I hold it at the same time? I'm very pleased with the cover, so why not? Set in 18th century London, featuring a gay staymaker making women's undergarments, who falls in love with a man who hires him to be his wife's dressmaker. The 3 of them live these secret 3 lives, all kind of tangled up within each other, but also with these 3 secrets that can't stay hidden. And the shock of the betrayal is kind of the story that unfolds. I should get better at summarizing that. I'm used to it being written down next to my book, but not saying it myself.
I mean, I think you did a good job. Don't worry about it. I mean, it must be nerve-wracking when you're a debut author doing these kind of things and having to talk about your book, especially because you've written it generally like quite a while before it comes out. So you've got to remember all the details and things like that. So
Thank you.
You did a superb job.
Thank you. Yeah, it does take a little bit of effort, but it's a joy. I still love the story. I still love the characters, and it's fun to revisit them. But you have, the new idea for book number 2 kind of at the forefront of my mind right now. And so it just takes a little bit more effort to remember, okay, yeah. And how, this is, I have the whole story in my head. How do I boil it down to the, couple key sentences that will sort of convey the meaning of it for someone who's interested in learning more? But thank you.
Well, and thanks for joining us as well.
Yeah, it's been such a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you for the thoughtful questions. Thanks to everyone who joined. And I hope you check out the 3 and enjoy your next read.